Today's story is one of those rare moments when truth doesn't arrive with a press release or a dramatic reveal. It doesn't crash through the door demanding attention. Instead, it wanders in quietly, barefoot, wearing jeans, looking almost too ordinary to matter. And in doing so, it completely dismantles years of carefully constructed, bad-faith narratives. This isn't gossip. It's not a leak. It's not a palace whisper attributed to sources close to the situation. What we're talking about today is first-hand testimony, the kind that makes spin merchants deeply uncomfortable. It comes from a real person who worked inside Harry and Meghan's home, someone with an actual job, real responsibilities, and lived experiences that can't be brushed aside as opinion or agenda. And here's the part that's going to sting for some people. Her story doesn't match the cartoon villains we've been sold for years. Lauren Kumalo, who worked as Prince Archie's nanny during Harry and Meghan's time in the UK, recently spoke openly about what it was actually like to work for the Sussexes. Not in a dramatic exposé, not with bitterness, just calmly, confidently, and with the kind of clarity that only comes from lived reality. If you've been led to believe that working for Harry and Meghan is some kind of emotional boot camp, a daily trial by fire under impossible expectations, then you might want to sit down, because this story politely but firmly flips that entire script. Lauren describes preparing for her first meeting with Harry and Meghan in a way that is painfully relatable. She didn't try to cosplay royalty. She didn't attempt to look wealthier, more connected, or more important than she was. She chose something dark, neat, and modest. Kitten heels, no makeup, not to impress, not to perform, but simply to show up as herself. She openly admits she didn't come from money. She didn't have elite connections. She wasn't pretending otherwise. Her mindset was simple and quietly powerful. If they take me, they take me as I am. That alone tells you something crucial. She wasn't walking into fear. She was walking into opportunity. Now pause for a moment and consider how different that mindset is from the one we've been told people should have when entering Harry and Meghan's orbit. According to the myths, staff approach them braced for impact, rehearsing survival strategies. Yet here is someone approaching the interview not with dread, but with honesty. And then comes the moment that completely shatters the mythology. Lauren explains that when she arrived at Frogmore, after navigating the expected security checks, she anticipated something straight out of a royal brochure. Stiff posture, tailored suits, formality dialed up to 1,000. The kind of environment where you feel like you're constantly being evaluated. Instead, she sees Prince Harry in jeans, a t-shirt, and barefoot because it was hot. Barefoot. Somewhere a tabloid columnist probably clutched their pearls. So unexpected was this moment that Lauren actually asked Harry's protection officer whether she needed to curtsy. Let that sink in. This is someone trying desperately to do everything correctly, acutely aware of royal protocol and the pressure surrounding it. The response wasn't cold or dismissive. It wasn't mocking. It was laughter, the kind of laughter that gently says, "You're about to realize something important." The officer simply told her, "You'll see. Prince Harry is amazing." And then Harry walks in, opens his arms, greets her by name, and gives her a hug. Not a power move, not a hierarchy flex, just warmth. Lauren describes him as a gentleman, a gem, someone who immediately made her feel welcome. Someone who dissolved tension instead of creating it. That doesn't sound like the monster we've been hearing about on morning television for the last 5 years, does it? Then she meets Meghan, and once again expectations collide violently with reality. Lauren's first thought, by her own admission, was simply, "My God, what a beautiful woman." And she's clear it wasn't just physical beauty, it was energy, ease, presence. The way Meghan made the space feel comfortable instead of intimidating. Lauren says the home felt normal. Not rigid, not performative, not cold, just human. Now stop right here, because this is the point where spin doctors start sweating. For years, we've been fed a very specific narrative, that Harry and Meghan are impossible to work with, cold, demanding, distant, uniquely difficult, a walking HR disaster, and yet every time someone who actually worked with them speaks openly, the story is the same. Warmth, respect, laughter, normality, dignity. Funny how that works. So let's talk about why this matters, because it matters a lot more than people want to admit. Lauren wasn't a celebrity friend. She wasn't a publicist. She wasn't doing a glossy magazine profile or a curated PR moment. She was house staff, a role that requires trust, emotional intelligence, professionalism, and daily interaction. People in those roles don't benefit from lying, especially not years later on a public platform, knowing that every word will be scrutinized, questioned, and weaponized. And yet here she is, calmly and confidently describing Harry and Meghan as approachable, kind, and grounded. So where exactly did the diva myth come from? We all know the answer. It didn't come from people who were there. It came from people who needed a villain. It came from institutions uncomfortable with a modern royal couple who refused to perform hierarchy the way others expected. And yes, it especially came from discomfort with a woman who didn't shrink herself to fit outdated expectations. Let's be honest, if Meghan is distant, she's labelled cold. If she's warm, she's accused of manipulation. If Harry hugs staff, he's breaking protocol. If others do the same, it's charming. The double standard isn't subtle. It's flashing in neon. And here's the irony that's almost comedic. The same critics who insist Harry and Meghan are obsessed with status are furious that Harry was barefoot and hugging people. Make it make sense. Are they too royal? Or not royal enough? Because the rules seem to change every 5 minutes, depending on who's telling the story. Lauren's experience also highlights something that rarely gets discussed: dignity. She wasn't made to feel small. She wasn't treated as invisible. She wasn't put on edge. She was treated as a person whose presence mattered. That kind of environment doesn't happen by accident. It's intentional. And that's why stories like this keep surfacing, not because Harry and Meghan are running some shadow PR operation, but because people who experience decency tend to remember it. And when given the chance, they speak about it. Notice how calm Lauren is when she tells her story. No bitterness, no exaggeration, no dramatics. Just genuine surprise at how different reality was from expectation. That's usually a sign you've stumbled onto the truth. Now, cue the usual response. Well, that's just one person. Okay, one person, then another, staff members, colleagues, charity partners, athletes, veterans, parents, children, all telling variations of the same story. At what point does the pattern become impossible to ignore? Because patterns don't lie. Agendas do. And let's inject a little humour here, because the contrast is honestly absurd. According to critics, Harry and Meghan wake up every morning plotting chaos, mistreating everyone in sight. Yet somehow every real human interaction sounds like a brunch invite with good vibes and hugs. Either they're the world's worst villains, or some people are deeply allergic to reality. Lauren expecting German or Swiss designer suits and getting barefoot Harry instead is almost poetic. It's as if the universe itself was saying, relax. That image alone dismantles the caricature of a man obsessed with privilege. He didn't need to perform royalty to feel secure in who he is. And Meghan, once again described as beautiful, welcoming and calming, somehow still gets twisted into something sinister by people who believe kindness must be a trick. Imagine living in a world where warmth makes people suspicious. That says far more about the critics than it ever will about her. What this story ultimately shows us is contrast. Contrast between lived experience and manufactured outrage. Contrast between humanity and hierarchy. Contrast between authenticity and performance. And that's why these stories matter, not because they're flashy, but because they quietly undo years of noise. So the next time someone confidently declares that Harry and Meghan are difficult, ask them a simple question. Were you there? Because the people who were there keep telling a very different story. One hug, one laugh, one barefoot moment at a time. And honestly, if being decent, informal and welcoming is a crime, then maybe the problem was never Harry and Meghan to begin with. Before we wrap up, let me speak directly to you, the Sussex Insights community. Stories like this don't always get amplified because they don't feed the outrage machine. They don't generate easy villains or click-ready fury. That's exactly why channels like this exist. To cut through the noise, to add context, to question lazy narratives, and yes, sometimes to laugh at how absurd smear campaigns look when faced with actual human testimony. If you appreciated this deep dive, if you value storytelling that centers lived experience over loud opinion, make sure you support the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss upcoming episodes. And if you're able, consider showing love through Super Thanks. It directly helps keep Sussex Insights independent, consistent, and unapologetically honest. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What stood out most to you? Barefoot Harry, the hug, or the sheer normality of it all? Let's talk. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and don't let loud voices drown out quiet truth.